Hey everyone, welcome to the Darshan Talks podcast. I am your host, Darshan Kulkarni. It is my mission to help patients trust the products they depend on. I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist, and I advise companies with FDA-regulated products. So if you have an interest in an FDA-regulated company or its products, this is the podcast for you. So today's podcast is about events, if you will, about conversations being had during events around virtual conferencing. So if you are in a marketing department, if you are a person who attends a lot of conferences, you might want to care because this is going to talk about one of the events we just attended, what our takeaway was, and it's sort of not just the perspective of a lawyer, but someone who actually is and works in content marketing. So our guest today is the event partnerships and content manager for the Pharma Marketing Network. And full disclosure, I am actually on the board of the Pharma Marketing Network, for the board of advisors, if you will. So I do like to point that out. But our guest today, Madison Crane. So Madison, welcome so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Darshan.
Quick question before we start, Madison. Could you talk about the reach of the Pharma Marketing Network? Because that always sort of impressed me.
So the reach of the Pharma Marketing Network is basically we promote a bunch of pharma marketing events on our page. And we also, if you are an event that would like us to, promote you or anything, reach out to us, and that's basically what we do.
So let's talk a little bit about the last event, which was the NextGen event. And so did you attend it?
Yes. So I think the NextGen Pharma Content Summit was like a really great informative virtual event, in my opinion. I thought that a lot of the sessions were very interactive. They were very, and speakers had great examples in their presentations. I also felt that the sessions had a lot of people communicating with each other in the chat boxes, and the audience overall was very engaged. I saw you in the chat boxes as well, Darshan. I saw your comments on a lot of the presentations. So
I had a really good time at the conference. One of the things that really sort of popped out at me was this idea of, I feel like the virtual format is finally coming into its own. And what I mean by that is I used to hate presenting virtually because it always felt like you're talking to a black box, if you will. You're speaking and you have no idea if it's being well received. And if there are any comments going on. One of the things I enjoyed was the sideboard of comments. It was almost, I hate to say this, but it was like the peanut gallery.
Yeah.
And we all had silly comments, but I don't have a problem with silly comments. I feel like silly comments are just a good way to sort of people blowing off steam. They're listening and they're just sort of mentally processing it as they're talking. I did another conference recently, and the only problem I had with them is I couldn't see the comments. So I'm curious, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but as far as I could tell, I don't know if the speaker could see the questions that were asked, because I think that at the end, someone was still reading the questions out to them.
Yeah, I think the speaker can only see the Q&A, as far as I know, and then the attendees can all just talk to each other in the chat box in the corner of the presentation. So yeah, that's what I like about it too. Everyone can just talk about it. Yeah.
I kind of would. It reminds me of when I used to do these larger in-person conversations. There used to be like a Twitter feed on the conversation itself, and you could see what people are saying, and respond and react. And I really wish, as a speaker, you'd give the person that option. I can see how that can go very, very wrong, because you might see things like the speaker is really terrible. But I didn't really have any problem with any of the speakers in general. I just thought that it could have given them a direct, just-in-time format to respond to questions as they're being raised, as opposed to waiting to the end. But do you, as a speaker, as a listener, want that to happen, or did you not notice that at all?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Did you feel like you wanted to have a just-in-time response, or did you not notice that was missing at all for you?
That's one thing that I kind of didn't, I guess, work well. I mean, it worked, but like the one thing is just the Q&A. I feel like there wasn't a lot of time for the Q&A at the end. I feel like it would have worked better if they maybe either paused in the middle to answer through the Q&As that we're already going through, or at least having like some time blocked off at the end to answer all the Q&As. So I know like they're on a tight time schedule where, they didn't have time. It depends on how long they talk for. So that was like one issue with some of the presentations.
What I liked about the way they addressed it, however, was that they created a networking session at the end. And that networking session, you could actually go talk to the speaker and have a conversation, and then speak to the other people on there. The problem with it was people like me, I felt guilty. I felt like I was dominating the conversation, which wasn't my intention, but it was just a great way to get to know these people. But did you attend any of the networking sessions?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't get to attend any of the networking sessions. But yeah, so I was interested in hearing what you had to say about them. So.
I really, really enjoyed them. I thought that they were sparsely attended. For the most part, I saw maybe 2 or 3 people in there with me. It reminded, if there was a real life corollary to it, I thought it was more akin to at the end of any conference, or at least at the end of any talk, people will go up to the speaker, and you'll have a line of 4 or 5 people waiting to talk to the speaker. To me, this was the equivalent of that. What I'd hoped it would actually be is more like the breakfast or lunch meetings where you get to talk to each other. And that didn't quite happen as well as I'd want to. But I thought that it was just a great opportunity to connect with people on a more one-to-one basis, which you couldn't do even a year ago at virtual conferences. So whatever format they were using, I was very, very happy with it. And I do wish more people consider a format like that. But I'd have to go back and look at what that was again, because I think people would benefit from using a format like that. So, but do you foresee Pharma Marketing Network using that type of format for conferences in the future?
But what do you mean again?
I'm not sure I have a clear explanation of what I mean. Do you see yourselves in conferences in the future is part of the question?
Yeah, definitely. We actually are starting to do our own webinars, actually.
Okay.
We just did our first one a couple of months ago. So we are starting to take off that of having our own webinar and like having guest speakers come on and, do something similar to this. Not like a 2-day thing, maybe one day eventually, a 1-day conference, but right now we're just starting off with like, 1-hour webinars with people.
Who do you see as the audience of those webinars?
Mainly just, marketers and healthcare, doctors, people in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Who can benefit from whoever, depends on what the subject is of the webinar. So.
So you see them mostly being in the marketing field, if you will.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it. And how do you see lessons from a conference like NextGen affecting how you do that?
So I do like how there's a schedule and everyone can like pick what they want to go to, and then also the Q&A as well affects it, because I know like what we do at the end is we have the Q&A at the end, so I feel like we'd rather have Q&A like more like have the audience more engaged with the webinar overall, so like communicate with them while we're presenting.
So do you guys have a format already in place or not yet?
Not quite. It's kind of just a Zoom webinar right now.
Okay. Okay.
That's what we've been doing.
Do you guys have anyone planned already?
Not yet, but we're definitely,
well, let's talk.
Getting ideas together.
Yeah, more than happy to talk to you about that. So I think that'll be a fun conversation in itself.
Yeah.
But let's ask a different version of the question. Who was someone that that was noteworthy for you, or conversation that was noteworthy?
So definitely Chris Diaz from the summit. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find his name. How to build trust in your brand and in uncertain times. So like I feel like he was a great person I would like to like reach out to and touch base with.
So tell us a little bit about what that conversation was about.
Oh no, I didn't yet. I didn't
No,
really.
no, I mean the conversation about what did he talk about? You said developing trust in the brand in uncertain times.
So I did attend his session about that on how to build trust in your brand in uncertain times. So I thought that Chris, presented great resources on how to build trust within your brand and develop your company's tone of voice. Some examples that he showed were where companies really made their audience feel connected to their brands, where the G.I. Joe and the Legos movies and the Ninja Turtles shows, and how these movies and shows are actually advertisements for the toys. I always figured that those movies and shows were ads, but like you never actually really think about it. So that that really shows that advertising all around is all around us, whether we notice it or not. But
here's my question, Madison. Do you feel like as a young person, you should have been informed that it's an ad in some way? Like, did we lose trust? Do you now lose trust in the brand because they didn't disclose that to you up front?
Not necessarily, because I feel like because I didn't know it was an ad, like I felt more like engaged with it, not knowing it was, because I feel like that. I don't know. I guess it's just better off not knowing that was an ad when I was a kid or younger. But
interesting.
Instead of it being like, business wise.
Because one of the things they always talk about is one of the ways to enhance trust is to be transparent.
Yeah, right.
And this is one of those examples where people weren't transparent. And what I hear you saying is, no, that worked out better for me. So is trust a little bit more complicated than, I feel like I need everything told to me at all times?
Yeah. I think it's because like when you're a kid, like you just see ads on TVs or you see movies and you're like, oh, like I want that toy. So you go to your parents or whoever and you're just like, oh, like I really love this toy. And like they don't really know why. They don't know what you see. I mean like on like movies or something or like a TV ad. So they're like, oh, that's interesting. So
wait, it sort of raises the question, right? So today it's the G.I. Joe or it's Barbie or whatever it is. But now it makes me go, the Pixar movie where you had Barbie with her, what's the house that she has? I forget what it's called.
Barbie Dream House.
The Dream House. There you go. The Dream House. Was that an ad? Should I have thought it's an ad? Does it make me unnecessarily suspicious? But you take that into pharma. Do I now have to suddenly worry, for example, that that the speaker is not doing it because she's just doing it because she believes in the product, but because it actually is an ad? And do I now start thinking about, well, will pharma look at cutting its costs by saying, you know what, here's an ad on an anti-diabetes medication, and the guy happens to be working in his shop. And you see an ad for Craftsman tools go at the bottom, and it wasn't just a oopsie kind of thing. It was intentional that you see pharma trying to offset some of its costs by including other tools in there. Like, is that something we should be worried about, you think?
I mean, I think so.
Okay.
Not too sure. I mean,
okay, let's ask a different version of the question. Do you tend to follow pharma brands on the internet?
I actually don't. I mean, outside of like work, I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
What's your take? Do you follow any online influencers like the Kardashians or anyone like that?
Yeah. I'd see their stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, okay, so fair enough. So my question is, the FDA has landed up targeting a lot of companies that are using online influencers. Do you and it's not been primarily being done by pharma, it's being done by a lot of other FDA regulated companies, but I have already heard the chatter about pharma companies doing this. Does that worry you, or do you think that's just the natural progression of things?
I mean, I think like they should be as honest as possible. You know, it's like health, but I feel like it is progressing that way. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, that's just how content marketing is just being done nowadays. You don't even notice it, and that's kind of what they're going towards.
But what you're describing is native advertising as opposed to
Yeah.
content marketing.
Mhm.
And when I think of native advertising, you want it to appear like everything else. You shouldn't even be noticed. You shouldn't even notice that there was an ad. Meanwhile, I'm going, well, that's exactly what I want. If she doesn't notice it's an ad, maybe she'll buy into it a little bit better than if I had to tell her it's an ad.
Mhm.
And do you, as the consumer, feel unfairly targeted? If that question makes sense, or you didn't really notice it and didn't bother you?
I guess, yeah, I guess I just didn't notice it. So
Fair
I,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see an argument for that.
Mhm.
It's one of those things that, as lawyers, we tend to worry so much about.
Right.
But as a consumer, you're going, yeah, it's a non-factor,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. It's the yeah, could it be better? Sure, maybe, but it didn't bother me, if that's what you're saying, is what I hear you saying. And
Mhm.
maybe I'm wrong. Um so what's your take? Do you think video conferences in general are they going to be here to stay, or
Oh,
do you
yeah.
think yeah.
So, I believe that, virtual events are definitely here to stay. Once companies realize that they can host successful events and conferences virtually, I think it would be hard to completely go back to just doing all in-person events. It seems that virtual events have been very convenient for people.
Yeah.
Uh, there are so many benefits and different things that you can do when hosting virtual events that you can't really do with in-person events.
Like
This
what?
this includes like attendees, communicating with each other in the chat boxes, as we discussed before,
Yeah.
with other attendees and leaving comments on presentations. And people can now receive the on-demand recordings of the presentations in case they missed, a session.
Yeah.
And then there are also so many great networking sessions that you can attend as well that you can't really. You can't do in person, but I just feel like it's overall just more convenient. Just popping off of a presentation and going right into a networking session, and then getting the recording of it afterwards if you missed
I
it.
think I think you're right for the most part. I think the only thing my experience is different on is people don't stay for the networking sessions.
Hmm.
Um, I felt like for the most part, even with, and I thought the last conference was excellent.
Yeah.
But I did notice that people sort of at the end of the presentation just sort of jumped off and didn't come back on
Mhm.
until the next conversation was about to start. And I don't know what the right way to address that is, but that physical act of walking out of an auditorium um, was when you often land up talking to people.
Right.
That's what you lose a little bit in a virtual conference. Um, but on the other hand, you get to work on some of the other stuff you've got going on. You don't miss days of work. You don't have travel costs. You don't have travel time. And that all becomes very, very useful. I'd be curious how it plays out from the sponsor end, to be honest. Do sponsors see the same value, or do they feel like they don't get the same attention that they want to? So have you heard anything about that?
Um, I have not. Like whenever we sponsor an event or we work with someone else, like they have like their logo on our website, and then
Yeah.
that's kind of it, really. We used to go to the events live. Like I haven't personally, but my team
Right.
used to go to it
Yeah.
live and just like network and
Yeah.
get live recordings, not of course, but like live shots of the conferences and like tweet about them on our Pharma Guy Twitter account. So it's kind of the same. It's just not in person for us.
Right. Right. Very cool. Any last parting words?
Um, I think I don't have any other questions, but I'll definitely keep you in the loop for more upcoming events.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And what is one question you'd like to ask the audience?
Hmm. um, how do you guys feel about virtual events? Do you guys like attending them, or would you rather them be virtual or in person? Are there any certain events that you are interested in more than others, in person or virtually?
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in hearing about that.
Very cool. So during this podcast, we landed up talking a little bit about the last conference. We both attended the NextGen conference. We spoke a little bit about what worked, what didn't work, what was the most interesting conversation that you sort of listened in on. We then spoke a little bit about what does the future of virtual conferences look like, why they sort of occur the way they do. Do we see there a future in this format? In which we basically said that it looks like it's a very interesting format that hopefully will stay around in some ways. It has its limitations, but for every limitation, there was actually sort of a advantage, if you will. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Nothing in this podcast should be construed as legal or clinical advice of any kind. It was intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Madison, where can they find you if they missed you?
So you can email me at mcrane@pharmamarketing.com. Or you can also follow us on our Twitter page, which is @PharmaGuy, or our LinkedIn page, which is the Pharma Marketing Network. So you can shoot me a message through email if you would like, to have us promote any of your events or have any questions. Let me know.
Perfect. And if you like this podcast, please leave a comment and subscribe. You can find me at Darshan Talks on Twitter, or go to our website at darshantalks.com. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.